Emily and Alex first met at his workplace. At that time, Alex was still a college student, making ends meet by fixing computers as a side job. One day, Emily rushed into his repair shop, distressed and teary-eyed because her laptop had crashed right in the middle of her crucial final paper. She was on the verge of panic, convinced she would miss her deadline and fail the course. Feeling compassionate, Alex lent her his own laptop as a temporary replacement. Emily was incredibly grateful for this life-saving favor and, as a token of appreciation, agreed to go on a date with him. And that was how their story began. Fast forward 7 years into their marriage, along with shared responsibilities and expenses. Their relationship started to shift. Emily became more short-tempered, frequently pointing out Alex's flaws. Their intimacy started to feel more like an obligation rather than something natural. It took a toll on both of them, but they kept pushing forward, assuring themselves it was just a rough patch, something all couples experience, and that things would soon get better. One evening, Emily went out with her girlfriends. She returned home slightly tipsy and, in a spontaneous moment, suggested a daring idea to reignite the spark in their intimacy. At first, Alex was open to trying something new, until Emily revealed her actual plan. She wanted to bring a third person into their bedroom. As it turned out, she had already signed up for a specialized website where people sought such arrangements. Alex was furious. The very thought disgusted him, and he shut it down instantly. To him, involving someone else was nothing less than betrayal, regardless of whether it was agreed upon or not. He couldn't fathom how the woman he loved could even suggest something like that. His anger was so intense that he ignored Emily the entire next day. That night, she finally apologized. "I really had no idea you'd be this upset," she admitted. "I'm sorry." Still trying to remain composed, Alex replied, "Maybe I overreacted. I'm sorry, too." In reality, he didn't feel like he owed her an apology at all. To him, his reaction was completely justified. But one troubling thought refused to leave his mind. Just how far was Emily willing to go to fulfill this fantasy? Could she actually betray him simply because he refused to go along with her desires? That unsettling question lingered in his head. Over the next few weeks, Alex started formulating a plan. He wasn't sure if he should go through with it, because once set into motion, there would be no turning back. But in the end, he decided it was better to take action and possibly regret it than do nothing and regret it even more. He told Emily he had to leave for a business trip, a complete lie. In reality, he took 2 weeks off work, rented a small apartment for that time, and secretly moved out. Next, he sought help from an old friend, Mark, someone Emily had never met. At first, Mark was shocked, but having recently experienced heartbreak from his own cheating ex, he eventually agreed to assist Alex with his plan. Together, they created a fake online profile using Mark's photos and a fabricated identity. They described him as someone adventurous and open to experimental relationships, especially with married women. Setting up this profile made Alex's blood boil. The mere thought of Emily responding to another man sickened him. Deep down, he hoped she wouldn't take the bait, that she would prove her loyalty and reject any real attempt at infidelity. But he was in for a cruel reality check. For an entire week, Alex, pretending to be Mark, flirted with Emily online. She showed absolutely no hesitation in opening up about her hidden desires, admitting that her husband wouldn't agree to it. So she planned to satisfy her cravings elsewhere. Some of her messages enraged Alex, so much that he had to turn off his phone just to stop himself from overthinking. Yet, despite his emotions, he continued, determined to see just how far she was willing to go. Would she actually go through with it? Would she really meet up with this so-called stranger? As it turned out, Emily was the one who pushed for an in-person meeting sooner rather than later. She didn't waste time with small talk. She just wanted to get straight to the point. A date was set. Alex and Mark planned everything down to the last detail. On the arranged day, Mark would pick Emily up and bring her to the rented apartment, where Alex would be waiting in secret. Since Emily believed Alex was out of town, there was no reason for her to suspect anything. A part of Alex felt almost justified, like he was on a mission to expose his wife's betrayal and make her face the consequences. He envisioned the dramatic moment. Emily would step into the bedroom wearing a blindfold. Mark would remove it, and she'd find herself face to face with her own husband. He pictured her dropping to her knees, begging for forgiveness, while he decided whether or not to grant it. On the scheduled day, Mark and Alex went over the plan one last time. Alex stayed at the apartment, pacing anxiously like a restless predator. His heart pounded, adrenaline surging through his veins. About an hour later, Mark sent him a text. On our way. Alex quickly double-checked the apartment, ensuring there were no traces of his presence. After all, he had been living there for 2 weeks. Once everything was in place, he slipped into the spare room, silent as a shadow. Soon, the front door creaked open. Alex heard Emily's voice, soft, playful, flirtatious. It was the same tone she used whenever she teased him, his hands clenched into fists. It took every ounce of self-control not to storm out immediately. He waited for Mark's signal, a specific line about choosing a drink from the kitchen. Sure enough, Mark casually said it. That was Alex's cue. The bedroom door swung open, and Emily stepped inside. She was wearing that dress, the one Alex had always adored, the one that accentuated her curves perfectly. But there was something else, a black mask covering her eyes. "Take it off," Mark instructed. "There's a surprise waiting." Emily removed the mask, glanced around, and froze. Horror spread across her face as she saw her husband sitting on the bed, staring at her with ice-cold contempt. "What is this?" she stammered. "I think I should be the one asking you that," Alex replied with a bitter chuckle. In an instant, Emily's shock turned into defiance. Instead of admitting her mistake, she tried to shift the blame. "This is your fault, Alex," she shouted. "If you had just gone along with what I wanted, none of this would have happened." Her face flushed, whether from shame or anger, Alex couldn't tell. She furrowed her brows, holding back tears. Deep down, she refused to accept her own wrongdoing and instead blamed Alex for pushing her to this point. But Alex didn't bother arguing. He simply pulled out some cash, handed it to Mark for his help, and muttered a quiet thanks. And just like that, it was over. Then, turning to Emily, he spoke his final words. "You're not welcome in our home anymore." His tone was cold, emotionless. "I'll pack your things and drop them off at your parent house." Panic flickered in Emily's eyes. She begged him not to tell them the truth. She knew her strict parents would be mortified by her actions, but Alex wanted her to face the full consequences of what she had done. So, he told them everything, just as Emily feared. Her mother barely spoke to her afterward. Even worse, she had no choice but to move back in with her parents, a daily reminder of the disaster she had created. Alone in her childhood bedroom, she spent her days reminiscing about the good times with Alex, their shared hobbies, their sweet routines, the love they once had. She cried more than ever. She still loved him, but it didn't matter. Alex had already left town, cutting off all contact. Emily tried to track him down through mutual friends, but no one knew, or if they did, they weren't saying. It's a heartbreaking ending, but also a lesson. Marriage is about balance. If one partner insists on chasing a fantasy that completely disregards the other's boundaries, it's a path to destruction. Now, ironically, Emily has the freedom to live out her desires every day, only at the cost of losing the man she truly loved.